Manning Market relocated to Paliagoda from today. Opposition leader urges the government to step up its interest in purchasing COVID-19 vaccines. Government is in no hurry to do so, replies Minister Vasudeva.
නිකමටවත් මේ වර්තමාන රජයේ ඒ ආයතන සම්බන්ධ කරගෙන අපේ රටේ සමස්ත ජන ප්‍රජාවට අවශ්‍ය ඒ එන්න ප්‍රමාණය ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා සාකච්ඡා කරලා තියෙනවද?
මම හිතන්නේ දැන්ට වැක්සින් එක අපට උවමනයි කියලා.
Grow cannabis for export purposes, a suggestion from parliamentarian Diana Gamage. Court of Appeal issues order making void the indictments filed against Janaka Bandara over a murder. Are marine creatures in the sea of Sri Lanka under threat due to naval exercises?
Very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1, bringing you the news. I'm Tharusha Kumar Singha. On to the top story of the bulletin now. The Colombo Manning Market, which was located in Petta for more than a century, was moved to the newly constructed building complex in Paliagoda today. The new Manning Market was opened today under the auspices of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa.
Prime Minister first unveiled the memorial plaque and then observed the newly built Manning Market in Paliagoda. The new Manning Market comprises of 4 stories and lorries will be able to travel up to the 3rd story inside the complex. The new Manning Market features 1,192 shops, a large parking lot for 600 vehicles, restrooms for staff, medical facilities, banks, restaurants, cold rooms and many more. The total cost of this project is estimated to be 6.5 million rupees.
We laid out the fundamental plan to construct the Paliagoda Manning Market back then as a solution for the massive traffic congestion in Colombo. We made this decision when the fish market was moved to Paliagoda. Therefore, we commenced the construction work of the Paliagoda Manning Market in 2013. If this was declared open during the time of the Good Governance government, they would have given all these shops to their henchmen. The Good Governance government tried to sabotage what we started and retaliate. Now you will understand as to whether they were trying to take revenge from us or from this country.
The event was graced by many MPs, ministers and distinguished guests.
Starting off with the political stories this evening, leader of the opposition Sajith Premadasa contributed to the debate of the second reading of the 2021 budget today. He queried the ruling faction regarding the various promises made by the government to the people.
They provided the uber-rich with tax concessions. That was what they did first. In doing so, they lost a substantial amount of state revenue. On page 47 of the budget speech, the Minister of Finance says, the general public of the country do not ask for any relief or handouts from the government. They request relief from the temple. Watch those videos. They are queuing up. Don't go far. Go to Abhiramaya. The furlough scheme, initiated in England, ensures that 80% of the remuneration earned by private sector employees are paid to them by the government. Where is the fiscal stimulus package? Where is the financial supplementary package? What solutions have the government provided to the rising cost of goods? Their solution is the issuing of gazettes. They are not implemented. What does this failure of a government do to cover up its errors? It arrests journalists. Is there no freedom of speech in the country? The government has already forgotten one article in the fundamental rights section of the Constitution.
The opposition leader was also critical in his remarks regarding the COVID-19 vaccine.
Martin Luther King has said,
our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. අවධානයට යොමු විය යුතු කරුණු පිළිබඳව අප නිහඬ වූ දිනය යනු අපගේ ජීවිත අවසානය ආරම්භ වන දිනය. මේ රට හදන
This policy statement, Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor, includes many promises and pledges. However, the budget does not depict any process which the policy statement envisages. The policy statement and the budget have been adjudged as failures by the People's Court. Ventilators and ICU beds required by those who are suffering from COVID-19 have not been provided. However, the ventilator of the SLPP continues to function smoothly. The SLPP has achieved its objective of lying and deceiving the people. They won the presidential election, the general election, gained a 2/3 majority and also passed the 20th Amendment. Now, they pay scant regard to the people. Since they feel they can wield their power according to their whims and fancies, the attention paid to eradicate COVID-19 has dwindled. Where are the strategic tools used to eradicate COVID-19? At present, there is a race to develop a COVID-19 vaccine. Pfizer and BioNTech have developed a vaccine with a 95% success rate. Moderna has developed a similar vaccine. Yesterday, the University of Oxford too announced a similar solution. Has the government commenced discussions with any of these companies to obtain vaccines required for our people? Has the government reached any preliminary agreements? Many nations, including the EU, US and the UK, have already reached such agreements. They have ordered millions of vaccines. We, on the other hand, are at the end of the waiting list due to the inefficiency of the government. All they did was joke about it. We would like to help the ruling faction. If there are any financial hindrances in ordering such vaccines, I advise the government to reach out to the Canadian government. There is a surplus in Canada. At least reach a bilateral agreement to obtain the vaccines which are in surplus. While the whole world continues to progress in their discussions to obtain vaccines, senior officials of our government have turned into vendors of indigenous medicine. Another set of businessmen are on the hunt for dollars by selling test kits. They have looted money from air tickets and even hotel charges. The government should not only act to order these vaccines but ensure they are distributed among the people free of charge. We can eradicate this. The Prime Minister said the recommendations for the budget were presented during a discussion in his village. We should remind him that is not what is important. What is important is this policy statement. The government should uphold the people's right to life.
මේ රජයේ වගකීමක් තිබෙනවා මේ රටේ ජනතාවට ජීවත් වීමේ අයිතිය ලබා දෙන්න. ඒ අයිතිය පැහැර අරගෙන තිබෙනවා.
වැක්සීන් එක තවමත් අත්හදා බලමින් තිබෙනවා.
The vaccine is still at a trial stage. Now various countries have ordered the vaccine for millions based on their wealth. We will order it as well when it is necessary. We will find the necessary funds as well. But I do not think that we need the vaccine at the moment. The United States is in dire need of the vaccine. We have other alternatives for the vaccine. We are using them at the moment to curb the situation. However, when the health officials decide that we have to import the vaccine, we will take the necessary steps to do so.
ගෙන්විය යුතුයි කියලා ඒ ගෙන්වීමට අපි මුදල් වෙන් කරමින් තිබෙනවා.
ගරු ඇමතුමා මෙහෙට වැක්සින් එපා කියලා කියන්න එපා. දැන් එංගලන්තේ බා පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න. එංගලන්තේ වීදි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. ප්‍රයොරිටි දාලා තියෙනවා.
මගේ කතාවට බාධා කරන්න එපා.
Do not interrupt my speech. How can you speak like that? You can maybe do that in the army. You can go back to the army if you want to give commands as and when you like. Here you cannot do that. Please say what you want to say when it's your time. This is the parliament, not the army.
එන්තුව මේක හමුදාව නෙවෙයි. වෙල්මුලාදෑනියා නිකන් වාඩි වෙනවා. එංගලන්තේ වගේ සහන දෙන්න නම්
If you want to provide relief like England, you have to have funds like England. A country like ours can manage with what we have at present. Is it wrong to say that we cannot spend more than 20 billion on importation at a turbulent time like this?
යුරෝපයට ගහනකොට රිදෙනවද?
ගරු කතානායකතුමනි අපිට ඒ යුරෝපා කාරණාවත් ඒවා දාලා නෙවෙයි අපිට තියෙන ප්‍රධාන ප්‍රශ්නේ දැනට රටේ මෝටර් සයිකල් කර්මාන්තය රථවාහන කර්මාන්තය ජීවත් වෙච්ච මහ විශාල පිරිසක
මේ ඕක රීති ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙවෙයි.
That has nothing to do with the point of order. First, identify what the point of order is. We do not know how you didn't see this Europe problem. We have already said that we will import the material we need for our industries.
තෝන අමුද්‍රව්‍ය අපි ගේනවා.
අපිට දැම්ම ඕක ගහන්න බෑලු අපේ කට.
We cannot have trials of the vaccine as of yet. International entities are trying to make us guinea pigs. I gave an explicit analysis that day. A 4-star general in the US military has been appointed as the head of the humanitarian department of the US Army. They are still running tests since March as to how to inject this vaccine when it comes out. In a country where there are 300 million people, 26 billion has been allocated for this vaccine. It is 15 times the population of Sri Lanka. So at least we might need $1.5 billion to import this. Your budget has allocated 16 billion for the control of COVID-19, which means you have clearly not thought about this. When I questioned Dr. Sudarshini Fernando Pillai whether we can use the vaccine in 100 different places, she gave me a very light-hearted reply saying that it can be done. But when I contacted the secretary to the Ministry of Health, he said that facilities to store the vaccine under minus 80 degrees temperature are only available at one place where they conduct PCR testing. Therefore, it has been planned in that way. We are extremely saddened that the government does not understand the magnitude of this. We are now relaxing after allocating only 16 billion for something we need at least 200 billion for. We have to be ready for this.
එන්න තාම අපි ගහනවා කියලා. එහෙම බෑ. මේනකොට අපි සූදානම් වෙලා තියෙන්න ඕනේ.
Meanwhile, the Lanka Private Bus Owners Association has designed a bus that is safe to travel in during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Vallampitiya Vennavatta Civil Defence Department camp and another office of the Civil Defence Force in Katunayaka has been placed in isolation after COVID-19 cases were detected from its premises. Rear Admiral Anand Piris, the Director General of the CDF, speaking to Newsfirst, said a soldier serving as a driver at the Vallampitiya Vennavatta camp tested positive for COVID-19 and the decision was made to isolate the camp.
Rear Admiral Anand Piris said around 70 personnel from the Civil Defence Force were placed in quarantine inside the camp as they were subject to PCR tests. In addition, around 30 personnel at the Civil Defence Force office in Katunayaka were placed in quarantine after a COVID-19 case was reported from the premises. 368 COVID-19 patients were discharged this evening after making a full recovery. This increased the total number of COVID-19 recoveries in the island to 13,271. The Epidemiology Unit at the Ministry of Health said that the total number of COVID-19 patients in the country has risen to 18,841. 4 COVID-19 related deaths were reported yesterday. 2 women aged 27 and 59 and 2 men aged 70 and 86 were among the deceased. The Department of Government Information said the number of COVID-19 deaths in the island has therefore risen to 73. If we look at the number of deaths analytically, a majority of the deceased are between ages 60, 70 and 80. Many of these people are not people who have gone out into the community. We can see that people who are in their homes have contracted the virus. Someone has taken the virus into those homes. We must follow health guidelines if we do not want to spread this virus. Right now, the Colombo district has become the epicenter of the virus.
කොළඹ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ තමා අපි දන්නවා අද වෙන විට මේ රෝග ව්‍යාප්තියේ කේන්ද්‍රය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
A majority of the COVID-19 cases reported yesterday were also from the Colombo district. Police confirmed that a woman infected with COVID-19 who was receiving treatment at the IDH has left the hospital with her 2.5-year-old child without authorization. The woman is a resident of Ahaliagoda. After leaving the IDH, she has travelled to her residence in Ahaliagoda, handed over her child to her relatives and has left once again. Police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana said the occupants of the house visited by the patient have been placed under quarantine. Meanwhile, a prisoner at the old Bogambara prison who sustained injuries after a failed prison break and another prisoner who died during the prison break have tested positive for COVID-19. All personnel at the Bogambara prison have been subject to PCR tests. The Department of Railways has announced that no trains will operate over the weekend. Issuing a communique, the Department of Railways said that only office trains operated during the past few days.
The Ministry of Education has decided to reopen schools island-wide apart from those in the western province or isolated areas. However, the viability of reopening schools situated in high-risk areas in the northwestern was inquired today.
We have made a recommendation to delay the reopening of schools in high-risk areas by a week. We also believe this is not the ideal time to recommence tuition classes, so we have postponed it by a week as well. The government has issued certain guidelines. We will adhere to those when reopening schools.
ඒවා අනුගමනය කරමින් තමයි පාසල් විවෘත කෙරෙන්නේ පාසල් වල කටයුතු කෙරෙන්නේ.
23 වෙනිදාවත් පාසල් පටන් ගන්න.
The decision to reopen schools on the 23rd is a good decision. However, the steps taken in this regard are somewhat problematic. Students in grades 1 to 5 are in the middle of this issue. Students in grade 1 were only able to school for 2 months. Their education has come to a standstill. The government should make known its plan for those students as well.
අධ්‍යාපනය මේ වෙනකොට මුළුමනින්ම ඇන හිටලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ ළමයින්ට මොකද්ද රජය විසින් ගන්නා තීරණය කියලා මේ වෙලාවේ රජයේ ස්ථාවරය පැහැදිලි කළ යුතුයි.
Last evening, they claimed schools will reopen on the 23rd. There are only 3 days left. We view this as an abrupt political decision. The statement issued by the minister himself notes that there are 6,257 schools which educate children from grades 6 to 13. Are these 3 days enough to disinfect all these schools? Have the facilities been made available? This is being done without a proper plan. These are not ad hoc decisions. We have consulted principals and senior teachers before reaching this decision. We also consulted medical professionals. This decision was made in order to strike a balance between both the safety of the children and their right to education.
දරුවන්ගේ අනාගතය සැලකිලිමත් භාජනය කළා තමයි තුලනාත්මක තීරණයක් අපි ගත්තේ.
Government of the United Kingdom has announced that passengers arriving in the UK from 5 countries including Sri Lanka will no longer have to undergo quarantine procedure upon arrival.
The UK government has said those coming from Israel, Uruguay, Namibia, Rwanda and Sri Lanka will not need to undergo quarantine process for 14 days upon arrival in the country. Travellers from these 5 countries including Sri Lanka will be eligible to land in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. These new changes will come into effect from tomorrow.
The government is currently launching a number of development projects. What is the latest? Let's take a look.
The Board of Investment of Sri Lanka signed an agreement with world-leading Chinese tyre manufacturer Shandong Haohua Tyre Company Limited to set up a project to manufacture tyres for the export market in Hambantota. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and Chinese Ambassador to Sri Lanka Ki Zhenghong and Shandong Haohua's Wang Qiquan joined the signing ceremony online. This high-profile project has been qualified under the provisions of the Strategic Development Act with an envisaged foreign direct investment of $300 million. Exports are expected to commence within 3 years.
Another $300 million will be invested during the second stage. These are not loans. These are investments. Direct and indirect employment opportunities will be created during the next 2.5 years. We can also send 9 million tyres abroad. We are expecting foreign reserves of $300 million. Today we hope to supply 3% of Sri Lanka's foreign exchange from this factory in Hambantota.
Meanwhile, Minister Wimal Weerawansa engaged in an inspection tour at the tyre factory in Vagavatta Horana, currently under construction. This factory, which is a $250 million domestic investment project, is set to open in January next year. 80% of the total output of the factory is set to be exported.
Within the next year, we are hoping to commence assembling motorcycles. Moreover, we are hoping to start many factories that assemble motorcycles within the next year. With this factory, if our output gets to the market, we will be a country to which money from foreign countries come to. Meanwhile, the construction work of the second phase of the Warakapola and Ambepussa alternate road commenced today under the auspices of Minister of Highways Johnston Fernando. Under the second phase, 4,111 million rupees have been allocated for the construction of 2 kilometers and 350 meters of a stretch. People say President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is a failure. Is that because he could not rob the central bank in the first 3 months of his tenure? If Gotabaya Rajapaksa has failed, I assume the culprits who robbed the central bank have succeeded. Not once. They robbed the central bank twice. They tried to rob from every project that was under their purview. As a result, the country's economy was downgrading before our eyes. Finally, they sacrificed national security. They fooled all of us from the 19th constitution by establishing independent commissions. But what happened? It went to the extent of third-class people like Ranjan Ramanayaka calling judges and interfering in court proceedings. This government enacts the law to the point. This government does not hamper with the court, the police and the commission to investigate bribery or corruption. If they say that they have succeeded judging by what they did, we certainly won't expect to do that.
An abundance of news reports emerged over the past weeks regarding the death of several marine animals. Although the cause of this phenomenon continues to remain a mystery, a number of key revelations continue to emerge.
A mass stranding of more than 100 pilot whales reported from the Panudura beach on the 2nd of November. Carcasses of 7 whales found from the vicinity of Panudura a few days later. Carcasses of 7 turtles discovered from several beaches. The carcass of a lone turtle washes ashore in Udapua. 2 sharks stranded at the beach in Mampuria, Daluwa. 1 creature dies. 3 spinner dolphins beached in Katukurunda. The carcass of a dead dolphin washes ashore. Why are such gracious marine creatures washing up ashore? Marine biologists claim sonar waves emitted through vessels and submarines pose a threat to the lives of these beings. Does any such activity take place in the ocean surrounding our nation? The mass stranding of the whales earlier this month occurred on a similar timeline to when India, America, Japan and Australia conducted a multilateral naval exercise in the Bay of Bengal, situated in close proximity to Sri Lanka. The second phase of this exercise, named the 4-Nation Malabar exercise, is currently underway, centering the northern Arabian Sea. A fleet of US naval vessels led by supercarrier USS Nimitz took part in the exercise. INS Vikramaditya of the Indian Navy also participated in the exercise. A number of other vessels, submarines and aircraft have also joined these exercises. Shouldn't a comprehensive study be carried out to ascertain whether these vessels and submarines which cross Sri Lankan seas have had a harmful effect on marine creatures in the area?
MP Dilan Pereira expressed the following views during a media briefing convened by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
Sir, fail. The one who is saying sir is fail is the one who said Ranil has also failed. There was one who said that Ranil can't do this anymore. I'm not sure if it is the same person who is going around saying that sir has failed. But where he went wrong is that he was talking about Ranil Wickremesinghe back then. But it is not him anymore. It is Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
The Court of Appeal today issued a writ order making void the indictments filed with the Kandy High Court by the Attorney General against Minister Janaka Bandara Tennakon over a murder. The order was issued by the President of the Court of Appeal, AHMD Nawaz, and Justice Sobhita Rajakaruna.
The Court of Appeal issued a writ order making void the indictments filed with the Kandy High Court by the Attorney General against Minister Janaka Bandara Tennakon over a murder. The order was issued by the President of the Court of Appeal, AHMD Nawaz, and Justice Sobhita Rajakaruna. Janaka Bandara Tennakon had filed a petition with the Court of Appeal citing that the Attorney General had filed indictments against him in 2015. At a time, a case was already filed with the Kandy High Court with regard to the 1999 murder in Mahawela, Kandy. Tennakon in the petition added the 2015 indictments over the 1999 murder were filed based on political motives, adding the indictments were filed following a non-summary inquiry held at the Kandy Magistrates Court in his absence. The Court of Appeal ruled it was illegal to conduct a non-summary magisterial inquiry in the absence of a suspect. The Court of Appeal also ruled it was not legally binding to file indictments with the High Court based on the said non-summary magisterial inquiry.
This is a historic decision. This was a case filed by the government of good governance to exact revenge from me. We sought the intervention of the Court of Appeal over a number of years, pointing out that this is illegal. We made submissions in court and today we have got a decision in our favor. Veteran actor Wilson Karunaratne, who was arrested, was released on bail after being produced before the Halsdorf Magistrate Court this afternoon. Wilson Karunaratne was arrested by the Kirulapane police when he arrived without a protective face mask to collect the 5,000 rupee allowance provided by the government. Views regarding the incident were expressed in Parliament today. I would like to say to the people of Sri Lanka that this government came into power stating that they will catch thieves. What happened at the end? They arrested my friend instead of catching thieves.
Wilson Karuwa මාස්ක් එකක් දැම්මේ නැහැ කියලා 5000ක් ගන්න ගිහිල්ලා විල්සන් කරුව කියන මගේ වන් ෂොට් එකේ වලිසුන්දර කියන යාළුවව අල්ලලා තියෙනවා.
The remains of the late Mahanayaka of the Ramanya sect, Most Venerable Napane Pemasiti Thero, will be placed at the Vidyasagara Pirivena in Hurikaduwa, Manikina till 12 noon on the 13th of this month for the public to pay their final respects.
Most Venerable Napane Premasiri Thero passed away on the 17th of this month while receiving treatment at the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital.
We sincerely request from all Buddhists to erect a yellow color flag at their homes as a sign of paying respect to the late Mahanayaka. The Mahasangha of the Malvatu chapter and the Mahasangha as a whole would like to express our deepest condolences. The Mahanayaka did an immense service to the education sector of the country.
ලෝක ධර්මතාවය මනවින් විදහා දක්වමින් අපවත් වන යෙදුනි. අතිගරු නාපාන පේමසිරි
Most Venerable Napane Pemasiri Thero's demise is a loss that will affect the entire sasana.
අප කවුරුත් හොඳාකාර දන්නා කාරණයක්.
Venerable Thero was 98 years old at the time of his demise. Registrar of the Ramanya sect, Venerable Attangane Sasanaratana Thero said, the cremation will take place this Sunday at 12 noon with full state honours.
Meanwhile, the government has printed 55.8 billion rupees for the first 19 days in November. According to the central bank, the total money printed so far this year has risen to 466.23 billion rupees. The temporary ban imposed by the government on vehicle imports earlier this year continues to be in effect to date. The decision was taken by the government in a bid to restrict currency outflows to lessen the blow on a COVID-19 struck Sri Lankan economy. In spite of this, the Vehicle Importers Association of Sri Lanka has urged the government to reconsider this import ban. Issuing a release, the Vehicle Importers Association has highlighted certain detrimental factors which have arisen due to the ongoing import ban. It reads, and I quote, "Vehicle importers provide various employment opportunities ranging from accountants, sales executives, marketing executives, drivers, cleaners, security staff, etc. Furthermore, service areas such as clearing agents, interior cleaners, mechanics, car carrier operators, and service centers are directly dependent on importation of motor vehicles," unquote. As per calculations carried out by Vehicle Importers Association of Sri Lanka, nearly 100,000 direct and indirect employees will have to be made redundant if the ban is to continue. The association also emphasizes on the importance of transportation and mobility for the progression of the economy. Meanwhile, during a meeting with ambassadors of Italy, Germany, Netherlands, France, Romania and the EU delegation based in Colombo, Minister of Foreign Relations Dinesh Gunawardena explained the challenges Sri Lanka was facing on its economy and the foreign currency reserves due to the significant reduction in remittances and tourism revenues induced by the COVID-19 pandemic. He underlined that the import restrictions are reviewed as we move along. According to the Times of India, the Sri Lankan government's ban on turmeric import from India has hit the farmers living in Erode, a city in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu.
The ban has affected the farmers and merchants who have been exporting 7,500 tons of turmeric to the country every year. According to the Times of India, the turmeric merchants have requested the state and the union governments to intervene and revive the turmeric trade between the two countries.
We leave you tonight with a suggestion made by MP Diana Gamage in Parliament today. The MP suggested in Parliament to grow cannabis for export purposes. Good night and take care.
I suggest that cannabis, which carries a medicinal value and is illegal in Sri Lanka, is planted with the government's intervention for export purposes in a bid to earn foreign exchange. I reiterate that the suggestion is to export cannabis in a scientific manner, strictly with the government's intervention. This proposal is brought forward to strengthen the economy. The export revenue earned by other countries in exporting cannabis is high. According to the European Investment Bank, the global cannabis market will expand by 1,000% within the next 10 years. They have predicted that the revenue will be $140 billion in 2027. We can plant this in our country and resolve the debt issue.